Welcome to this week's podcast interview. I've brought on Johnny King. Johnny, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be
And
here.
luckily for me, Johnny is actually my neighbor right here in Denver. We met at a Lewis House event, but I'm so stoked to have another like-minded individual so close.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I mean, you're not exactly my neighbor. That'd be even better. But no, this will be going to be fun. So thanks for having me on.
Give a little background. Well, we know where you live now, but what do you do?
I'm a men's lifestyle coach. So working with, I've spent the last 10 years roughly working with a lot of women, focusing primarily on the foundation of their lives, which is health, and helping them to figure out how to, get certain things in alignment so they can truly thrive. And now things have kind of naturally shifted into working more with men. So I did start a couple of gyms back in 2010. Well, a gym, which turned into multiple gyms, and I owned those for 5 years. And then my coaching business kind of morphed out of that and eventually moved here to Denver, sold off my gyms, and just been a full-time coach the last 4 or 5 years. So, yeah.
What I want to ask you about what you previously used to do, and I find that a lot, is women tend to kind of forget about the whole self-care thing.
Yeah.
So were you dealing with a lot of overweight or confidence issues, or what was it?
Yeah. All the above.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Women very similar to my mom. God rest her soul. She was a saint of a woman in the sense that she put the needs of all 5 of her children, myself included, and her husband and the community and all the organizations she was on, all ahead of herself, but that was also her way of feeling significant, And I remember when I was a young adult, I was say 22, 23. I remember her like crying and be like, "Am I really a good mom, Johnny?" I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, if you don't know that you're an amazing mom by now, like,
yeah.
But again, we all need validation no matter, how successful we are. So just was too bad that her health is the area that she found, kind of her way of being able to self-medicate her problems away. Right. And, ultimately led to cancer and passing away at 61 years old. So that's the challenge. And so that did prompt me into working more and more with women. And so, yeah, that is, in short, a lot of the common challenges. I mean, confidence, yes, it's self-esteem, and then food just becomes the easy go-to for you feeling good in the moment when hell is breaking loose everywhere else,
Let's take a break. I need a snack.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but really, I'm hungry now. No, no, I get it. Like, I'm not that old, but I'm 33 and metabolism is a thing, and it's definitely lower than it used to be. And I love food, and I'm a stress eater and sometimes emotional eater if I'm bored or stressed. And it's now catching up. And yeah, I don't want that anymore.
Well, and if you think about it too, you put it into context, like, my mom had 5 kids. She had a kid every 2 to 4 years, and how much, I don't know. I'll never know what it's like to be a woman in that sense, but you have, a new mouth to feed every couple of years, and you're supposed to be also fitting in time. It's like the hardest thing ever. And I feel like being mom of children is the most important and, taxing CEO position in the world, really, raising tomorrow's leaders. So it just was a challenge. And in the 80s, 90s, I mean, that was like the boxed food, she was buying, oh, look, Oreo cookie cereal or waffles that have syrup already in them, Pop-Tarts. Like, there was no thought about all the crap that we were putting into our bodies as children. And now we know as adults, like, oh God, and I have my own health issues because of it, but she didn't know. So she did the best she could. And, the best we can do is to learn from that and help others. So.
Well, now that you've transferred into coaching men, what are some common categories or things that men are dealing with?
I feel like I think we talked about this in conversations past, but it's such a relevant time, given all the stuff that's going on you know, in the public scene and spotlight when it comes to powerful men taking advantage of so many, things. And there's a fog, if you will, over men and how they're showing up in today's society. So I feel like I've struggled in my own life because of my own shortcomings, which truthfully came from not really having a strong male mentor growing up. So for me, it was, there's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which I've read multiple times, and there's support groups, which I've been a part of. They're all around the country, all around the world. And it really talked about how, since the Industrial Revolution, where machines kind of took over the manual labor that fathers and their sons used to do in the fields, husbands and fathers then were, off to like the city, or they were off to go work to provide for their family. And little boys were left to be raised by sisters, moms, female school teachers, female Sunday school teachers, which again, it's not the women's fault. It's just, it is what it is. Right. But then boys started to learn that to find their value, they had to be women pleasers. Yes, men, and kind of lost their masculine spine, if you will, to some extent. And so I think we've seen this, we're like generations into just having a lot of men who don't really know what it means to be a man and struggle to find true fulfillment. They're checking things off on the, yep, I provide, I have a house and we have good income, and yet leaving their spouses, their partners, their children totally emotionally starved because they're emotionally starved, so.
Yeah. Well, I think we could veer off on a whole nother topic and so many different avenues to go down. But what I want to kind of talk about is, you shared with me previously kind of like this 3 or 4 year gap of a lot of things happened to you, some big life changes, and then how maybe if you want to share a little bit about that and how, maybe life hasn't quite gone as planned.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, I talked about that. My mom's passing was like the beginning of it. I think that was like the first wake up call in 2006 of like, wait, what? Like things like that happen, and they happen so quickly, and you're like, this feels surreal. This feels like a dream, So shortly thereafter, I got engaged, got married like the following year. The year and a half after that, my father came out that he was gay. And that was like, wait, what? Another record scratch. And then like 6 months after that, I forget exactly my wife decided to move on from the marriage. And so all of that stuff was like, it pushed me into, this is not what I want. However, this is what's happening. And am I going to resist it? Like, how do I just react out of the shit that was going on in my life, or do I respond, and how do I do that? So those several years was like, one kick in the groin after the next, and man, did it force me to let go of the perception or the vision I had of how life was actually going to go. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, I cannot relate on your level, but I'm definitely at a point, I didn't think I would be this age. Let's just say this, okay? I used to think I would have been married by 25, children by 28, happily married, my big white, whatever. I'm 33, single. I'm fine with it. Been traveling the world. So I guess I ended up, my fork in the road was, well, life isn't going as planned. I might as well enjoy it. So that turned into travel, quitting corporate, doing things for me. But now what? So now, I mean, you're years past that, but what are you doing now?
I think that is a struggle too, because it's so easy to go down that road and kind of beat yourself up for like this is not where I thought I would be by X age, or, you know, um, and, you know, I think that's just, I think you mentioned it too, that comment of being, you know, comparison being the thief of joy. Comparison being the, you know, the breeds discontent. And it's just the comparison. We live in such a crazy society of us being able to compare ourselves with other people on social media. And the statistics show that people who start their day off that way, about just like waking up, turning off their phone, and then opening up Instagram, are notably more depressed, you know, less confident, sadder, less motivated within 5 minutes. And that's how they start their day, you know?
Yeah.
In turn, though, I feel like we also are comparing ourselves against where we thought we should be by that time, you know? All of that stuff, man, is like the hardest thing to let go of, but you kind of have to get to the point where you just have to see it for what it is, which is, it totally robs you of any type of excitement or joy in your life. So you have to be like, you know what, taking responsibility for where you are in your life, you know, this is what I've achieved. And if I want to continue to have the same results, then I kind of will, I guess I'm just forced into doing the same things that I've been doing. But if you want to change the trajectory, then you have to change your belief systems, like everything that we've been pouring into ourselves, right? The education, and like get a mentor, get a coach, get pushed in a way so that you have greater emotional fitness so you can handle more stuff. Otherwise, don't beat yourself up if come 65, you're kind of on that same playing field, if you will, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, so what I'm getting from you is it's more or less kind of like accept your reality, and whether you come up with plan B, C, D, whatever letter you're on at this point. I guess it is just stepping into and realizing, okay, so it didn't go as planned, but what do I want now? Is it rewriting that vision? What do you think?
I think it totally is rewriting that vision, because ultimately you can sit down and say, okay, from where I am right now, where do I want the next, you know, 1, 3, 5, 10 years to go? You know, it's probably not going to be that way, you know? But there's also kind of some excitement in that, you know, because if we all knew where it was going and it always worked out, like we achieved every goal that we got, it'd be so boring.
I'm totally going to botch this, but what's that quote about? Tell God your plan. Darn it, I'm going to mess this up. But it's kind of like God will laugh at you when you try to tell him your plan.
Yeah.
So I guess, what's the difference of having a plan, how you think things will go, and then being open and ready and not resisting how things may be way better than you could have planned or expected because you let go of your plan?
I think that is, I feel like that's the hardest thing to do. And yet, that is probably one of the biggest areas of coaching that I give my clients, and that I'm constantly reminding of myself, which is the majority of people who are overweight, you know, let's just say, if we're just starting with, if someone's out of shape, it's typically because they are using food, alcohol, some type of vice or substance to gain control in a moment. You know, things are chaotic. I'm feeling a lot of pain. I'm feeling a lot of stress. I know that at least for a moment, I can go to this food or this dessert or this Starbucks drink or whatever, and I can control feeling pleasure in a moment, you know? And if you take that to the X degree or whatever, N degree, it's drugs. It's heavy drugs. It's things that are ultimately going to kill you, but you're just attempting to control being out of pain and into pleasure as quickly as you can, right? So control is like the drug ultimately, right? We use different tools to gain control, but that's what it is. And the sooner you can actually let go of control, in my humble opinion, which causes, you know, and whether you believe in a higher power, God, the universe, Mother Nature, whatever you want to call it, like the sooner you can actually let go and let whatever force direct you, man, the sooner things actually start to flow. I've just found that to be the case. And I felt like that was the biggest blessing in my life come those 3 years where life, you know, kicked me in the junk, was like, man, this is not the way that I thought it would go. However, I still can love my mom, even though she's not here. I can love my ex-wife, even though I don't agree with her decisions. I can still love my dad, regardless of his, sexual orientation. And just like, oh my gosh, it became so much easier versus me being like, no, this is not the way it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a huge life lesson.
So what do you do to strengthen your mindset to kind of have this anchored every day?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I have my little, it's on my iPad, so I look at it routinely, but it kind of has my life vision, has my goals. I have one page of my Google Doc that has it's just images of kind of how I view my
vision board.
My vision board. Thank you. The direction that I'm going with things. Right. And so that's taken a little bit of time for me to kind of create. And I think it's always going to be something that it's just an organic, document, if you will, that's always changing. But that helps at least zone me in to where, okay, this is the direction I'm going in versus just allowing life to throw whatever it will at me, and me take that as, cues to focus my thought on versus saying, no, this is, the storm can roar around me, but this is the direction I'm going. And that helps a lot for me. So.
Well, and for you, how do you keep that balance of having the vision and now you feel more maybe like you have a roadmap, but still being open to letting things happen otherwise?
Yeah, I feel like I keep coming back. There's more of me that's letting go of how I feel like it should look, and more emphasis that I'm putting on how I want to feel.
Oh, I think that was powerful right there.
Yeah. So, because ultimately I have to surrender away, even just physically, like how I'm going to look, 30 years from now, I'm not going to look like I'm in my 30s anymore. Right. So you have to, you never know. Technology, right? Yeah. You never know. But I do feel like when I'm looking at relationships that I want to invest myself in, the work that I want to do, like I will pass on making crazy money for areas of business or opportunity that I have no heart connection with. I really don't care to make a lot of money for no fulfillment in the feeling arena, right? Yeah. So I want to feel a certain way with my future wife, my future children, the work that I do, the impact that I have. And for me, it's been a decade of just pouring into myself in terms of personal development to be like, okay, what ultimately do I want? Because when I hit 30, I had everything that I thought I had been taught I wanted. Yeah. And then I'm like, this isn't actually what I want. So I feel like that's the traditional midlife crisis of like, okay, I've checked off all the boxes and now I'm still unfulfilled. What the hell, right?
I was just going to say maybe 30 is the new midlife crisis because mine happened at 30. Yours, what? Is there a common theme?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. I know we could talk for a while, but I would like to wrap this up with a few rapid fire questions for you.
Oh, good.
They're nothing crazy. What is a quote or motto that you live by?
A quote or motto that I live by. One thing that I often think about, I rank high on the empathy, scale, if you will. And one thing that came from Tony Robbins is that he says to always kind of question what else could this mean, And I feel like it's not so much a motto; it is a saying. I do often catch myself thinking of that because this is just such a meaning-making machine, right? And I immediately start finding myself going down like, oh well, if this happened and this, I'm like, well, I just have to catch myself and realize again that helps me then surrender, because how do I know exactly why something happened or what not? It just helps me from not attaching such personal sense to why things happen a certain way, and then not taking offense. And I just flow with things, and it keeps me from being distracted. I can keep focusing on my direction, So that helps a lot.
That's a good one to live by. What advice would you give your younger self?
What advice would I give my younger self? Hmm. I think it always comes down to believing in oneself. You know, so I think it's I have certainly lived an abundant, blessed life, and yet at the same time, there's been so much of my lifetime that I've lived feeling like from a place of lack or scarcity. Just so dumb when you look at how the rest of the world lives and how little they have really compared to what we have. And so just not only giving gratitude, but believing in your own gifts. And it's not about physical abundance; it's about mental, emotional, spiritual abundance. And I've always had it. Sometimes it just takes years to start to see it and to believe in yourself. So I would tell my younger self to, like, man, believe in yourself and don't waste time, having that debate of whether or not you're good enough.
That's awesome. Who inspires you the most?
I kind of at the moment, I really, really am inspired by guys who, Tony Robbins for one, he'll always be atop my list without a doubt, because he's changed my life so much. And why I think so, and the qualities and the characteristics that I appreciate, not only in him, but other men that I appreciate. Like, I love, in different ways, I love, like, Justin Timberlake. I love Ryan Reynolds. I love Adam Levine. I love guys who, at least on the outside, as well as Tony Robbins, they seem very congruent with who they are. I can certainly tell when there's a lot of successful, at least I'm talking about men in particular, but I see there's a lot of men that are successful, but they're successful because of a deep wound. And they have this, like, massive drive because they don't believe they're good enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so it just comes across as very incongruent and very insincere and fake, whereas Justin Timberlake and Tony Robbins and Jimmy Fallon, like, those guys seem like they have so much fun. They are such amazing individuals. They don't get in the way of their own success. They don't let their ego get in the way, And so I just love those type of, and talk about other women. I could go off, on a long list of women who are living the same way, who are they're not on an ego trip, but they are just crushing life because they know who they are, and they're at peace about that. And they have moved themselves out of the way so that their mission and what they believe in life speaks louder than any desire for them to have to prove themselves, So I think that's probably the journey that I've been on too, is, getting myself out of my own way as well. And why I appreciate that in other people that I admire and look up to.
So authenticity, that's what it really comes down to. Just being your authentic self.
For sure. Absolutely.
Final question for you. What is a book you have read or currently reading that you highly recommend?
Dang, so many good books. Man. Well, some that I read last year multiple times. Jen Sincero's "You're a Badass at Making Money." That's so good. That was so inspiring. I read that multiple times. The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
You can say it. Say it.
Give a fuck. Yeah, by Mark Manson. That was another good one. So much better than I thought. I thought it was just going to be like a funny book. That he drops truth bombs left and right. Like that book is really, really good. Yeah. So, I mean, I read so much. There's so many that I could choose from, but those are two that pop up in my head because I read them several times last year. So
awesome. Johnny, thank you so much for sharing your story and your background and just being your authentic self.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.